Good morning, YouTube. How you fine folks doing today? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We're going around Indianapolis right now, and I feel much better today. If you can't tell, I'm in a much better mood. I got some rock solid sleep last night. I woke up this morning. It was 57 degrees, and that's such a great temperature. I slept with the truck off last night, and wow, amazing. So, yeah, I feel great. I got some good sleep the night before. Woke up feeling better than I had been yesterday, but today, yeah, we feeling good. So, I figured today I would talk about my experience buying a truck and where I bought my truck, which was Lone Mountain, and my experience through them. I have a little over 100,000 miles on the truck so far, and so far so good. I've had very minor things, go wrong with the truck. These are really, they're just preventative maintenance type things. If you don't buy a brand new truck, or when you buy your truck, if you don't get 100% of the maintenance records, you really don't know where you stand on a lot of these, on a lot of the different parts that wear out at different intervals or should be replaced at different intervals, or the proper maintenance has been performed. And unfortunately, I did not get the maintenance records whenever I purchased this truck. That's not typical through, when you're buying a truck. You're not going to get that from the majority of places that you buy trucks. Now, that being said, looking back at it, I would change that. I would not. I would make sure that I found a truck that I could get all the maintenance records from, or I would lower the mileage. I bought this one with 453,000 miles on it. I would drop down to probably 200,000, maybe 250 if it was just, in really great shape and it was something that I truly wanted. Or I would buy brand new. And that's scary. That's a scary thought, because I swore that I would never buy a brand new truck, but I'm starting to look at all these numbers, and it actually makes really good sense to buy a brand new truck. We'll get into that in a little bit, but so when I went looking for this truck, or whenever I went looking for a truck, I treated it like I was purchasing a vehicle, because that was my experience. I also was a car salesman for a good portion of my adult life, or my working life, we'll say that. And so I treated it the same, and I definitely should not have done that. I would look at truck paper. I'm sure all of you have glanced at that because it's sitting right outside of the truck stop. But I looked through truck paper, and I would see, let's take my truck for example, 2013 Kenworth T660 with a Cummins motor in it. And you could find these trucks in the price range of, typically you're going to find, at the time, it was the very low 50,000s for my truck. You could occasionally find one for the upper 40s. And you could actually find them ranging all the way up to, I even saw one for 60,000. And kind of the previous salesman in me, thought, well, the ones listed for the upper, all the way up to the upper 50s and the 60,000s, well, they were just trying to make room to negotiate. A lot of dealerships work like that, and the average was the low 50s, and then occasionally you could find one for the upper 40s. So that was my goal. My goal was to find one for the upper 40s. I was looking for the best deal on a truck. And little did I know, that is not how you want to search for a truck. The difference in the price in these trucks is what has been done to them once they get to these dealerships. Now, it doesn't always that's not always the case, but that's actually what I have found, and that's the case the majority of the time. So when you find a truck out there, now I'm not saying run out there and buy the most expensive truck that you can find. That may not be a good deal, but do the research as far as what, if they have the maintenance records and what they have actually done themselves. Specific, be very, very specific, because sales, unfortunately, is a smoke and mirrors game. And like, let's say for instance, I bought this truck, they said the DEF or DPF filters were cleaned. Well, it turns out that there's 4 of them and they only cleaned 1. Did they do anything wrong? No, they didn't, because they did what they said they did. But I didn't do my job properly in order to find out enough information to make sure that, what it is that they specifically did. So anyway, you have to look at that, and you have to look at future cost of ownership, because there are, before buying a truck, you really need to take into account, what are you going to have to do to this truck to bring it up to road ready? What are you going to have to do to make sure that all of that preventative maintenance has been done to the truck? So that way you now have parameters, so you can say, oh, okay, well, like for instance, the IMAP sensor, that's a 200,000 mile service. Well, 9,999 times out of 10,000, that's not going to be replaced. Hardly ever. On the pre-owned market. And so I bought this truck for 153,000 miles on it, and it was the original IMAP sensor. And that's scary, because what happens is, these little things add up to big things. They shorten the life of the motor. They shorten the life of, just the truck as a whole. And it winds up snowballing. And this is what happens to newer owner-operators. That's why the rate of success is so low for new owner-operators. And it's really, and truthfully, it's just a lack of information. It's ignorance. But there's so much information out there that I encourage you to start today. Figure it out, find good information. Like I said, get on Roz.com. Start to read his book. You can see in his book the preventative maintenance schedule, and you can start to give yourself an idea of what needs to be done at what intervals, and you can start to learn to ask the right questions. You can get on his forum and you can ask, well, hey, I've got a truck that's coming up on 400,000 miles. What should I expect to go out on this truck, or what can I do to prevent, any future breakdowns? And there's so many people, on that forum, and so many of them are very helpful. But anyway, so knowing what your future costs are going to, or what those are going to be, is going to give you a serious edge in becoming successful as an owner-operator out here. So I have 500 and almost 57,000 miles on the truck, and I know that turbos, they generally go out about 600,000 miles. Do they all? No. Can they last up to 800,000? Yes. But do I want to push it to 800,000 and just wait and break down out here on the road and have to pay a tow bill? Because some of these tow bills can be really, really expensive. Your average, you're probably looking at a couple grand, I would say. Maybe 1,500 to a couple thousand, but that's not cheap. So if you throw that on top of replacing a turbo, which is between $5,000 and $6,000, because you want to replace it with a new one, you don't want to get a pre-owned one or a reman. That's huge. That's a huge expense. And so when looking to buy a truck, you need to keep that in mind. And so whenever I got this truck, I started doing all those little preventative maintenance things that were basically 500,000 miles in before. And I looked at all of the intervals and saw, okay, and checked all these different things out, saw what had not been done to the truck, and those are what I started with. So that was the first place that I started, and I actually started with an EGR tune-up. So that was the first thing that I did, and then I looked at all the different intervals, and I started catching everything up. I dropped a lot of money into this truck. That's probably why I haven't broken down. We'll get into some other things in a little bit, but when looking to buy a truck, there's so many factors involved, and just asking the question out here of what truck should I buy? That is such a loaded question that it can't even be answered. But if you have all of the right information, truly arming yourself with that knowledge is going to give you such an edge and really propel you forward. So anyway, I'm going to get off here for now. I'm going to come back at you guys a little later on. We're going to talk the numbers. I'm going to go over the numbers and I'm going to show you exactly what I paid for this truck and what I've done to it so far. And we're back at you. We're here at the Flying J in Des Moines. En route, we stopped at Iowa 80 and we picked up a couple hubcaps, which I needed. I don't want to talk about it, but needed those, and grabbed an extra set of glad hands. I just happened to be browsing and saw that they were 18 and some change, so that was a good price for a pair. So I went ahead and picked those up. I needed those. I had a glad hand pop on me, I don't know, sometime a couple months ago, I think, pretty close, and did not have an extra set. I thought I did, but I did not. So yeah, I had an extra one in there, but I went ahead and grabbed a pair, so that way I could have two, just in case something crazy happened. It's a little overkill, but I like to be over prepared rather than under prepared. So yeah, picked those up and took my break there, looked at the goodies, looked at the shinies, and got out of there pretty cheap considering. So got over here to Des Moines, parked. There was actually plenty of parking here. I was surprised. Being a Sunday, I am hardly ever moving on a Sunday. I'm always parked, so I don't really pay attention to the parking situation. But there was a good amount over here, so that's always nice. Plus, we're across the street from a casino, so we're gonna get some poker in tonight, which will be nice. So yeah, so doing that. To go over what I talked about earlier, my lease. So how much did I pay for this truck? Now, when I was looking for trucks, a T660 with a Cummins motor, not the Packer motor, in roughly this year model, and roughly the same miles is what I meant to say. This ranged anywhere from 48,000 all the way up to 60,000. Now, upon further inspection, the majority of the work had been done to this motor. The only thing that I was hesitant about this motor was that it was very high on the hours in comparison to the mileage that was on the truck, which means that it was idle a lot. And digging into it even further, I did a rig dig, and I forget the name of the company. Shoot, it's a smaller company, but it's actually owned by one of the larger carriers. It had a PTO on it. This was used in a tanker application, so that definitely scared me a little bit, because when you idle and you have a DPF system on the truck, you are just severely increasing the chance for carbon packing. Carbon packing happens around the top of the pistons, or more specifically around the liners. and what happens is you start to lose oil, and you have to put oil in between intervals of the oil changes. And what it's going to do is it shortens the life of the motor. You're going to need an overhaul sooner. So I knew all of this going into it. I looked at other options, and I have good credit. I don't have A1 perfect credit, but I had good credit. However, last year we bought a house, so that tanked my credit score. And when looking for these trucks and applying to try to get these trucks, I was still approved, but I had to have a massive down payment. The lowest down payment that I saw was 30%. I could have swung the 30%, but that would have eaten all of the extra money needed. To sign on with Mercer, you have, well, really it's a flatbed company. I'm an owner operator, so they only, they don't want to float a new guy $6,000-7,000 right off the get-go. That's not a good way to start your career. So, had to put some of the money up for the equipment, had to buy my Qualcomm, had to put the lettering on the truck. I wanted nicer lettering. I didn't want, just stickers that were going to fade, so spent the money for that. All in all, dropped some change. So, and I knew that I was going to need that stuff. Plus, I knew that stuff was going to need to be done to the truck. Driving it down, I drove it down from Dallas down to Houston, okay, like 240 miles. And in that time, just that 240 miles, my back hurt because the seat in it was so bad. So that was the first thing that I changed. And as a matter of fact, you've probably seen KW, I did put a legacy seat in here, and let me tell you, worth every penny. Worth every single penny. I did not get the heated seat. I've never used heated seats. I've used cooled seats. That's not an option. So I didn't spring for the very top one. I got just under that. But very pleased, very, very pleased. So anyway, for this truck, I had issues with trying to obtain decent financing. To get your first commercial loan, it's actually not the easiest thing to do in the world. So I found Roz before I actually bought this truck, and I had gone through his book. I did the majority of what he said in his book in order to check the truck out. The only thing I really couldn't do was pull the engine cover off, and there's not very many dealerships that are going to allow you to do that, but that's something that you should do almost immediately. Or if you can take the truck that you're looking at, if you really narrowed it down and you really feel like that's the one, if they'll allow you to take that truck to a mechanic, you really need to have that engine cover pulled back to see if there's any damage in there, because that's mega bucks, where you're talking serious money. So anyway, did my due diligence. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, going about it. But I told you all of that to now bring you to how much I'm actually paying for this truck. My truck payment is only $13.25 a month. That is an extremely affordable payment, extremely. So that was a huge bonus. You don't want to set yourself up not knowing the business. I was new to flatbed at the time. I was a new owner operator. There's a learning curve there. You don't just dive right in and start making big bucks right off the go. So that learning curve, you don't want to set yourself up to get into a truck, get into something new, have not making as much money as you can be making, and then wind up having a major repair. That's not a recipe for success. So the truck payment played a huge part in that, in purchasing this truck. And the down payment was only $6,000. So I'm sure you've probably already got the calculator out by now, but I'll save you the time. $57,600, and it was either 25 or 75. I don't know. That's irrelevant.
You can just round it up. We'll call it $58,000. So $58,000 for this truck. It's not the best deal in the world. However, it's a really good deal. And you know, for your first truck, there's a lot of nightmare stories out there about Lone Mountain. Okay, but the only, you know, like they say, the only good news really is bad news. And so you don't hear about the success stories going through Lone Mountain. If you look at Daniel McCarthy, he runs, his YouTube channel is Stronger by the Mile. Fantastic YouTube channel. I actually just stumbled upon it, so I've burned through, you know, a lot of his videos already. I really enjoy, you know, his channel. You guys should check it out. Make sure you subscribe. But he went through Lone Mountain for his first truck. He is a success story in the end. However, he didn't exactly have the greatest experience from out of his truck. I have certainly been blessed with how well this truck has treated me. You know, I have put a lot of money into preventative maintenance, but I haven't had anything really go wrong with the truck. So it hasn't really costed me too much unexpected money, and that's the killer. So, and he's driving a sweet 389. I mean, it is sweet. Oh my gosh, we'll talk about that new truck bug, man. He bought it from Rush Peterbilt in Tulsa. Oh man, such a nice truck, bro. If you watch this, man, I love it. Anyway, man, I'm daydreaming. Anyway, so $58,000 for this truck. All in all, you know, it was in good shape. It wasn't in the best of shape because I didn't get the records, the maintenance records. So there were a lot of things that I needed to bring up to par in order to make myself feel comfortable and run what I call a profitable, successful business by the book. So, like I said, knew what I was getting into. You know, I could have bought a cheaper, well, if I floated that down payment, I could have bought a cheaper truck, but in the end I would have had to put a lot of money into maintenance to bring it up to par, and then I'm out that money on my cash flow. Versus, or you can buy the upper 50s truck and have the majority of that maintenance done and not have to concern yourself with that. I highly recommend you do the latter, but I definitely recommend you do all the research in order to get to that point and find that right truck. So yeah, you know, so far so good for me. You know, you guys know how many miles on it. Now you know what I paid for it, so you kind of know the deal. You know, like I said, you know, they were super easy to work with. The approval process, now I had experience, and whenever I applied, I mean, I think it was like right at 5 years that I had in the industry. So, you know, whenever I applied, that is something that they look at, they take into account. And I pretty much got an instant approval. You know, anyway, so if you go through Lone Mountain, you'll know the process that I went through. I'm not going to reveal the whole process, that's not for me to say. But anyway, you know, it was an easy process. It was simple. My salesman, which I forgot his name. Oh man, I'm a terrible YouTuber. I'm sorry guys, I apologize. He's out of Dallas. I'm gonna look up his name, and I'm going to, at a later time, if you're watching this video whenever I upload it, it's not gonna be there yet because I don't think I have his name here on the truck. I know I've got it in my paperwork at home, so probably be a little bit later from now, but I will put his name down in the description below along with his phone number, and I'll probably mention it when I do it in the vlog in the future, so you guys can have my contact. So anyway, you know, back to that PTO, the high idle hours on this truck. To let you know, I do burn oil, and I burn a significant amount of oil. I burn more during the summer than I do during the winter, simply because you don't idle nearly as much in the winter. Only if it drops below, you know, it gets into single digits do I actually turn. turn the truck on overnight. But so I do, in the winter, I burn about a gallon in between my oil changes, PM services, and I burn anywhere from 2 to 3, out here during the summer. And I know that that's bad, and I know that, you guys may say something about that, but I'm looking into ways to try to reverse that carbon packing. It can be done, it can be made better. I don't know if it can be made whole, again, without doing the upper part of an overhaul, which is about $8,000. So that is certainly weighing in my decision as far as what to do about this truck. This truck is going to need an overhaul probably before I reach 800,000. You're looking at, we'll just call it 20. It's not 20, but we say it's going to be close to 20. So that's 2 years away. And then on top of that, a turbo. Talking about a lot of money. A lot of money. So I need to crunch all the numbers. It might be a smarter business decision to get a new truck. I promise you, before I get any hate, that I am going to crunch all of the numbers and take into account not just the truck payment, because that doesn't make, it makes a difference, but when you're talking about a truck payment that's brand new, that's under warranty, for 4 to 5 years, and you're talking about maintenance cost, and you're talking about any additional costs like tires and stuff like that, I promise you, I will add all of those figures in, and then I will take this truck, and I will take the payment, and I'll take everything that should need to be done to this truck between now and 2 years from now, and I'll see what makes sense. And we'll kind of go from there. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go check out Stronger by the Mile. Daniel McCarthy, he's got a great channel going on there. He's more high-tech than I am. He's got much better footage than I do. So you'll enjoy that a little bit more. And don't forget, stay driven.